See, we have, I'm looking, maybe change my view here so I can see all our participants list. Looks like we have 21 people on already. It's pretty awesome. It's 5:31 and we already have 21 people here. That's awesome and amazing. All right. Hello, everybody. I am Emmy Chilton. I'm the president of Austin Women in Technology. It is my privilege to serve on this board. And I just want to thank you. And if Denise, if you could bring up the slide deck. All right, welcome to our event. You're absolutely worth it. Shifting from self-doubt to undeniable confidence with Velera Wilson. We're super excited to have this event tonight. Maybe we can go next. Tonight's sponsor is BB Imaging, and we're going to have a representative from BB Imaging tonight. I will turn it over to her after I thank the rest of our sponsors: Cirrus Logic, Apex, Sana, Himco, Charles Schwab, Under Armour, Axiom, Clear Data, BB Imaging, Revel IT, and ShipStation. So again, I would just want to thank everybody. I'm looking forward to a great event tonight. And now I'm going to turn it over to Blanca Lesmes with BB Imaging to tell us more about BB Imaging.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having me today. We're really happy to be sponsoring tonight's event because we think it's an appropriate topic given this milestone moment for our organization. We're an organization that has really been working in the healthcare service space. We provide ultrasound services to pregnant women. And Valera's topic on shifting from self-doubt to undeniable confidence is appropriate in that we have started to launch a tech arm to our service company. And I would say that this probably took a little bit longer than it should have because that doubt really crept in there and probably didn't propel us forward fast enough. So thank you for presenting on this. I think this is one that really serves us. I think one of the things that has allowed us to move into the technology space is that we've got a really amazing team, and we're really looking to build that out more. One of the problems, yeah, Denise, you can go ahead and move forward. One of the problems that we're trying to solve as an organization is how do we bring more prenatal care, specifically using ultrasound, out into rural or underserved areas. We really want to improve access to care, especially to women who typically don't have access. Our goal is to decrease maternal mortality and to decrease maternal morbidity, which is illness during pregnancy. So that's really what we're focused on. And our technology, if we can go to the next slide, our technology is called Telescan. We just got it out of prototype, so we're testing it right now. And ultimately what we're doing is we're doing teleradiology, but we're doing teleultrasound. So how do we do remote ultrasound in areas where they don't have a sonographer who can do that? And that's a key problem in these rural areas. So we're building this team to help us with this solution. And if you don't mind advancing to the next slide. So we're looking for some key players. The big one right now is a product manager. So we're really looking at having a diverse team. So we thought AWT was a perfect place for us to reach out. And again, having this great topic coming on really made a lot of sense for us. So if this is you, if you're interested in working in impacting women's health, and you really are striving to be part of a team that is very collaborative in nature, we'd love to have you. And Stephanie Lee will be on through the duration of this, so reach out to her. Stephanie, if you want to wave, she'll be on as well. So go to the next slide. One of the things that we really value as an organization is encouraging others, offering to help other folks in little ways, and even smiling, little things like smiling and asking about people's well-being, because it's hard for you to value yourself. Sometimes starting with valuing others is a really good place to just start working on that skill set. So those are things that we really encourage on team. It's part of our company culture. And so we'd love to chat with you if this is something that would be of interest to you. So thank you so much for having us. We're excited to be part of the AWT community. And please reach out to us if you'd like to explore more opportunities with us.
Thank you, Blanca, for sharing. We're going to jump next into our networking roulette, which if you guys haven't done this before, it's our way of trying to facilitate the networking that you would normally get in person. Or at our in-person events done virtually. So what we're going to do is we're going to send everyone into breakout rooms that are randomized. You'll have about 5 people in each room. And please start off by introducing yourself, where you work, if you're looking, if you're hiring, anything that you're trying to accomplish this evening from this event. And then as soon as you do that, please go ahead and start answering this first networking question, which is, what brought you to tonight's event and what are you hoping to get out of it? I'll give Denise just 1 second and we'll pop all into different rooms.
Turn on your cameras.
Oh yeah, and put on your cameras, please, if you can. Back, everyone. I hope everyone had a great time and met a whole bunch of really great people in there. I'm going to introduce our speaker for the evening, Miss Velera Wilson, who's going to be speaking with Heather Trumpfeller this evening. So Velera is a speaker, author, and coach who has spent over 15 years leading market strategy and driving millions in revenue for Fortune 500 brands, including AT&T, Fiserv, and Verifone. She is the founder of Positive Identity, a company that helps ambitious women lead the confidence in their career, relationships, and everyday life. From her latest book, You're Absolutely Worth It, to being a contributing writer to the Thrive Global on women's issues, to publishing guides including 6 steps to negotiate the salary you deserve without letting fear override. Velera shows women how to own their worth. Recognized as a female leader in the industry, in 2018, Velera was selected to join Money 2020's Rise Up Global Accelerator program for women and serve as the program's 2019 U.S. ambassador. A big believer in paying it forward, she serves as a mentor to women through the American Marketing Association, National Black MBA Association, and others across the country. She resides in Atlanta with her husband. And I'll hand it off to you, Heather. Welcome,
Awesome.
Velera.
Welcome. And reminder, if you want to put it in speaker mode as well right now, I mean, keep it on gallery, look at everyone's beautiful faces. But wow, since we'll be hearing from Velera, that might be a good little option there. But yeah, Velera, we're super excited. Most people, you know, in the networking breakouts, we're talking about what made you come to the event tonight. And a lot of them were saying that topic. I needed to hear that topic. I need to know reminders of this. So what exactly is the inspiration behind you writing this book?
Really my life and experiences and that of the women that I have come in contact with. And first of all, thank you, Heather and team and everyone that's here today. I appreciate the invitation and I'm excited to talk with women in tech. And in terms of the inspiration itself, it really was my own life of times and feeling like I didn't have confidence. I wasn't sure of my self-worth. And I thought a lot of it had to do with where I'd come from, how I was raised, like, you know, very personal and difficult experiences that I had to come through even as a child. But then I started to connect with other women. And they were female founders. They were corporate execs or, you know, aspiring, you know, emerging leaders in companies. They were recent female college graduates. And I started to hear this similar sentiment. And I've coined it that internal swirl of self-doubt. And it was that one theme or that one question that seemed to really bother a lot of women that I would talk to, including myself. And that question was, am I worth it? Am I enough? I don't know if anyone's ever felt that or ever wondered that, like, am I enough? Has anyone else felt that way? And so it started to really bother me. And it started to bother me first because I started to realize how many times and in how many ways, both in my professional and personal life, I was literally shortchanging myself. And I started to then hear other women who were, because they weren't sure of their own worth and they weren't as confident, they were doing the same. And I thought, oh my gosh, you know, as I started to really peel back the layers of my own life and started addressing some beliefs and started to make some changes, it started becoming really, really important for me to help other women do the same so that they could too command their worth and be confident.
Well, I love that. And I love that I am enough is a question that paralyzes us in so many aspects of our life. And I actually even want to share this. So Diana on here is a new member that joined AWT today. And in her email to me, she said, I became a member because I decided I was worth investing in. And that sentence alone, I mean, Diana, thank you for joining and being here. But why is the message of confidence and self-worth to women so important today? And can you elaborate on some of those areas that we really feel that paralyzing question?
Sure. So I think really the message of worth is really important today, particularly if you look at our current environment. There are so many things and layers that we're experiencing, whether it be as a business owner or in corporate. So you have the pay gaps, the disparities in access to the C-suite. You have access and disparities in access to funding for female entrepreneurs. Then you layer on right now, we're in the middle of a pandemic. And then you layer on another piece, a lot of the racial tension and unrest that we have in our country. And so if you've had a chance, if you've ever read the McKinsey study, the Women in the Workplace study, it's the recent results came out actually, and it talked about how many women are actually leaving the workplace. One, because they're starting to feel like they have to make a choice, but also it's just because it's overwhelming sense of stress too, because of everything that we're dealing with. And so it's so important, I believe, right now, because of all the competing forces, right? There's some very practical things that we have to deal with in terms of, you know, being able to have, you know, split household responsibilities. But in essence, at the core, when we know our worth and when we're confident in that, we can raise our hand and say, I need help, or no, that doesn't work for me, or I need more money than what you're offering me, or I want that contract too. We can really draw the line in the sand in terms of what we will accept, what we won't accept, what we will go ask for. And I think it's definitely a timeless message, but particularly right now, it's a very timely one because we can say yes to ourselves, even when we might be afraid to do so, because a lot of women, even right now, are nervous to put boundaries between work and home because, well, will I lose my job? And more people feeling more pressure to be on right now to prove that they're of value to the company, for example. So it's just a lot of different reasons that it's so important right now to be able to be confident and say yes to ourselves first.
Have you and my inner critic been having side conversations? Because I feel like you just were in my head right there. But no, I mean, and even on that topic, like inner critic is such a TED Talk word that we, you know, hear all the time. And we actually have an upcoming event on it in November. But what do you find that causes that internal chatter, and where does it come from?
So there are some very real internal and external forces that can bring self-doubt and hesitation. In my book, I talk about that. And I start the book out by talking about the root cause, because so often we don't address the root. So we keep getting the same symptoms. And I always say in anything in life, whatever, if you just keep sweeping it under the rug, or you don't want to address the root cause, you will inevitably keep tripping over that same thing. And what I found, the internal chatter often comes from our own sense of inadequacy, for one. It might be we think I'm not as good as that person, I'm not as smart as the next person, or very real experiences in our career, our relationships, our personal lives. You know, it could be anything from gender discrimination, racial discrimination. It could be, you know, times when you did raise your hand or ask for something, you didn't get it, you got rejected. So it's just a lot of things. And then I think as a woman too, we have to also look at our cultural upbringing, our beliefs, certain things that might have been passed down to us as we were growing up. Well, women shouldn't be too aggressive, for example, or I shouldn't talk about myself too much. Or I don't know if any woman's ever been told, you know, or ever felt like I shouldn't brag on myself so much, or shouldn't talk about me. I don't know who's ever felt, but that's a struggle sometimes. And so those things start to really make us question ourselves and our competence and our gifts and our strengths. And so it's really important, again, to get to the root. But it's really two things. It's internal, very real things that we feel about ourselves that often are influenced by a very real external forces.
Well, I actually got to sneak preview a little bit of your book, and I love, in there you say what will happen or not happen. So when you were just talking a little bit about that, that dinger kept going off in my head. And actually Brooke and I were talking about this in the networking roulette a little bit earlier, is that a lot of women tend to only do things when they know 100% of those capabilities, right? And you were even just talking about that. What happens if I don't raise my hand? Again, it's what happens if what will not happen if I don't do this because I don't have all the qualifications? I mean, what advice do you have for women who think, as a perfectionist, and I'm a struggling, recovering perfectionist here, that you just have to be brave, right? Brave and not perfect. That was a big message from the Texas Conference for Women. So what would you say about encouraging that bravery? You don't need to have all the qualifications.
Yes, I would say that the most important thing I think about is, you mentioned the word perfection, and so often I just did a talk about imposter syndrome. And one of the things that I find a lot of times that need for perfection is really a fear of failure, because the fear is that if I fail, look, I've proved myself right. I've proved what everyone else might have thought about me, is that I wouldn't be able to be successful in this. And so sometimes in the need to be perfect, that fear of failure will prevent us from taking some risk and really exposing ourselves to some great learning opportunities. So the first thing I would say is to release the need to be perfect in order to have confidence. Often people will ask me, well, what is confidence? And I always start by saying, let me tell you what confidence is not. Confidence is not some future state based on perfection or perceived perfection, because that's not possible. Confidence is, because a lot of times we'll say, well, I'll be confident when, or I'll be confident when I get that promotion, or when I get that title, when I get that salary, when I've been in business as long as that person. We attach a future state of ourselves and our self-worth to that perfect state, that ideal state. But the reality is that confidence is for now. Confidence is in recognizing I'm not perfect. However, I am evolving. I am an ever-evolving person. But here's the thing. I bring value today in what I do know. So I may not know what the next person knows who maybe has been doing this for 10 years, but the value I bring today, I'm going to deliver that. So when I walk into a room, I'm going to deliver value. So if I'm starting my business, I'm going to deliver value as a startup business. If I'm starting out in my career, I'm delivering value today, whether I'm an analyst or a VP. I have value, and I have some equity in the things that I've done that bring that value to the rooms and the seats that I sit in.
I am evolving is such a great phrase, especially since on here, and we'll talk about this at the end a little bit more, but we always do who's hiring and who's looking, right? And that's evolving, right? People in a career transition or change. And that's one of my favorite things about AWT is we range from high-level executives with 20 plus years of tenure at a company to those actively looking for jobs and just out of school. So what would you tell not only job seekers, but just people in general who struggle with confidence today? What's some of your key advice?
I would say what I said was about recognize that there's no need to be perfect. Please do not attach your confidence to being perfect. Attach it to everything that you've done to get to where you are. Because as I said, it has equity, and equity is a currency. It means that, you know what, when you think about it, I write in the book, I talk about, taking a trip down memory lane. Sometimes when we are in the pursuit of what's next, we almost can discount what we've done to get there, right? When it's something new, when it's something that might be uncomfortable, when it's something that's different, we forget all of the things that we've done all the way up to this point, and we almost discount it and don't give it as much weight. But the reality is that those hours that you spent, if you're a recent college graduate, the hours you spent to get that degree, the student loans that you have to pay back if you went to college, the hours and the years that you spent in your career, getting that certification, everything that you've done up until this point where you're getting ready to go to the next, it has equity. And because of that, you need to equate that with the value that you will bring to that new experience. And so you can't forget about that, but write it down. I always say, do an analysis. And by the time you do that, when you really sit down and think, oh my God, I did all of this, like it's a list. Like, wait a minute, why wouldn't I ask for that thing? Sure, maybe I haven't done that thing, but I've created the foundation to be ready to go to that next thing.
I think that's a great point too. I feel like it's harder to ask for things when we're newer in like a company or newer in a role, but you're right. Everything you've done in your past that got you there for that position, it's equity. So right. I agree. It's easier to ask for things when you've been doing it. But what about, how do people find the courage to ask for what they want? What would you tell them?
Well, I think there's a couple things. One is, the reality is that if you don't ask, someone else will, and they might just get it. And they might just get what you were going to get if you would have asked for it. And so I think it's so important is when you think about the fear of asking, I always think about, what is it that you fear most? Would you fear the no, or do you fear not getting the very thing that you might need to be, to thrive in your own personal life or professional life? In particular, when I talk to women and when I coach women, when they're going on interviews, when they're asking for things, or they're getting ready to negotiate a salary, for example, I always say, you're not just sitting in that seat, in that meeting, in that interview, for example, or in that business meeting. Let's take it out, even out of interview experience. When you're asking that client for that business, you're not just asking for you. You're asking for everyone that's attached to you. You're asking for your legacy. And so I always say to women, you have a responsibility to protect your legacy. That means the people that you that depend on you financially, whether it be your kids, your spouse, your parents, because when you don't ask, you're giving all of that up. So you're going, for example, to work on a project for a client if you are a business owner, or you're going to work for a company if you're an employee. You're going to work, but your exchange or your ROI, the return on investment, is not as much. So I always encourage women to say, listen, I have a legacy to protect. Where I live, how I vacation, where I vacation, what I do today and in the future, it is impacted by my ability or inability to ask. So when I think about all those things, I say, listen, I got to ask. It's not personal, it's business.
Ooh, that's a good one. It's not personal, it's business. Jotting
Yes.
that down. But also another thing you said in your book that I really liked is you said, it's almost as if we need permission to pursue, be, or to have what we really want. You may have goals and desires you want that you've never even talked about because you don't think you can achieve them. So obviously you just shed us a little light on how to ask for those things we want. But when someone's asked and they haven't been heard, what do you say to them then?
That's a good one. Because the reality is, I always say this: just because you ask does not mean you'll get it. It's not a genie in the bottle. You ask and it magically appears, right? The reality is that there's going to be times where, for whatever reason, people are going to say no, whether in your career, business, personal life. And I always like to say that the first thing to recognize is that you cannot attach the worth to the no. So sometimes we're so afraid to ask because we're afraid of the no. Because when we get the no, we might feel like, well, there's something wrong with me. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. Who's ever been afraid to ask for the no, afraid of the no? I'm just curious if it's just me. It's because it's something about it that makes us feel like it's rejection. They're rejecting me. It's because I'm not that smart. See, I knew it. I'm not that smart. It's almost like a self-affirmation of what we aren't. And that's terrifying for us to feel. And so I always start there and say, you know what? Brace yourself for the no and detach your worth from that no. Because here's what I found is that sometimes the no is really not about you. It's not about me. It's about the person who has the inability or the disinterest in seeing what we are capable of doing, right? Either because for business reasons or for personal reasons, because that's just people. That's life. So you might ask for that promotion. You might ask for that client, but they may just say, you know what? We don't want to work with your company, or we don't want to promote you for whatever reason. Here's why I say you go from just taking it personal to becoming strategic. So when you hear the no, realize, okay, I'm going to take me off the table. It's not personal. And even if it is, I need to get to the root. Why? I say go to the why. Why are you saying no? If you don't mind me asking, whether it's a manager or if it's a client, can you tell me, what about this is not work for you? Why doesn't this, why is the answer no, basically? And here's what I found. People will either give you reasons or they will give you an excuse. It's only two things. There are no other answers. And the reason means that it's a valid reason as to why the answer is no. It could be, well, your pricing was too high if you're whatever. Or it could be, you know what, you haven't had any experience in this area and we really need someone in this area in order to do this job successfully. Okay, those are reasons. And here's what the reason allows you to do. It allows you to get a development plan, meaning a growth plan. The development plan is about helping you get to a yes. So, okay, they say it's pricing. Well, what kind of pricing would you have liked? What kind of pricing would have helped you? And you can develop from there. Or if the answer is, well, you don't have the skill sets in this area. Well, what do I need to do? What type of training do I need to take to get to that yes? That's the reason. Then there's the other lane. There's an excuse. And I always like to say, ask so you can find out if it's an excuse or a reason sooner than later. Because if it's an excuse, you're wasting your time trying to prove your worth in that scenario. Because there are some people who will never win over. It doesn't matter what we do. Doesn't matter how hard we work. We can work 15 hours a day. They still would say no, right? You want to get to the no first so you know if you're wasting your time sooner than later. So when you hear the no and it's an excuse and because you go down the list and ask why, and you're like, this doesn't sound right to me. That's when you make your transition plan. And I like transition plans because they say to me, I've expired my time here. It's time for me to move on. And who would prefer to not waste their time? Anybody? Okay. So you got to ask to find out, is it a reason? And I know I'm spending some time on this one, Heather, but it's for a reason, because I've been in this scenario a number of times, and I hate to see other women, I hate to see myself wasting time. We will put our heads down and do the work, do all these things, and we get a no 10 years later when we could have got the no in 10 months. And that's one of the reasons I wrote the book. I don't want us to waste our time. Find out now if you're getting a reason or an excuse. You can put a development plan in place. That's called evolving. But you can't do anything about an excuse. Only thing you can do an excuse is take the quickest exit. And you want to find that out sooner than later.
Woo! Sis, you can take all the time you need on that one, because that was amazing. But I agree. The worst thing they can do is say no was something that we were talking about in our breakouts. And something I was thinking about, I was like, maybe let's add a W on there and turn that no into not now or something like that. But you're right. I would rather be told this is never going to happen and learn it's an excuse for certain reasons. So I just got to ask, did you get any no's when you were writing your book, or some pushbacks on your book?
Oh God, yes. I had no idea that literally I would be walking through the same exact process of everything that I wrote in the book as I wrote the book and promoted the book to launch. I had no clue. And that's the great thing about life, right? Is that, so I didn't just write it and just come up with some stuff. I literally had to walk out that experience every day, every month, every week of launching this book. And the reason why that was the case is because, and I say this because we're evolving. So Velera hasn't arrived. Velera continues to learn. I continue to learn. We're going to all continue to learn. And so worth is, it continues to evolve. We're going to always be challenged. Am I really good enough for this thing? And that was me. So yes, maybe I'd have developed confidence in one area, but I was not an author. And I talk about that very honestly and transparently in the book, because I want women that read the book to know I'm not sitting up in this ivory tower telling you I'm perfect and I've arrived. No, I'm telling you I'm evolving, and here's the things that I continue to learn. So I'm a first-time self-published author. And so for me, I knew that there was a book, as they say, and people have said, there's a book in my belly. There was a book for me to birth. And I said, okay, well, how, with anything, I did research, and I was talking to literary agents and different people, and I was getting the pushback or the feedback. Well, you're a first-time author. Well, what's your platform look like? How many followers do you have? Well, I don't have a big platform. I don't have millions of followers. I mean, that's not what I have. And so the industry of public, it's a business. So that many people are saying, well, you know, you're a first time author, it might be kind of hard for you to get a book deal with traditional publishers, yada, yada. So I began to hear this, and it started to go on one ear out the other. I said, well, here's what I'm not going to do. If my book is about being worth it, I need to know this message is worth it, and that my message is worth hearing as an author. And so it became important for me to self-publish, because I felt, most importantly, I need to say yes to me before I waited for anyone else to say yes to me. That was very, very important for me as I wrote this book, is to not wait for someone to decide that I was good enough to be part of their publishing, get a publishing deal. No, I'm good enough today. And so I'm going to put the sweat equity into producing the book, writing it. And so that's what I really had to do. And the funny part about it was I started to research what I could expect as a first-time author. And I was hearing everything, you know, those nice put downs where people kind of like, oh, well, don't expect too much. And, you know, I call them the nice nasties, right? It's like, don't get your hopes up too high. I said, okay. And so I started to Google, what do first-time authors typically sell and all these things. And so they're like, well, maybe just focus on the next book, because that'll probably be better, right? So I'm like, I haven't even gotten the first one out. But long story short, I just said, I'm going to promote it as if it's what I really believe in. And I did. And every day when I felt like, oh, I'm talking about myself too much, no one wants to hear the message I have to say about this book. No one wants to see Velera again post on social media about this. No one wants to see how, you know, because I don't talk about just my highlights in the book. I talk about my failures, my flaws, because that was very important to me, because we have enough people talking about how good they are on social. And so it was important for me to show the not so good parts of me, the failures, to show that it doesn't matter what you've been through. You're still worth whatever you're pursuing. It doesn't disqualify you. And literally, I kept promoting the book, and I kept showing up every single day. And I launched the book September the 29th. We had people join virtually from around the world. I was shocked, okay, to see that. And I sold more books. I exceeded the number of sales that I could have even imagined before the book even launched. And I was shocked. I literally was very shocked, honestly, because I could not see how many books I was actually selling. That information was not available to me until like a day before the launch. So I was astounded, to say the least. But it reaffirmed my commitment to every woman and every woman on this call to say, it doesn't matter what people don't believe in. When you say that you're going to do something, it doesn't matter what you haven't done before. When you have something in you to produce, and when you really believe in it, and when you go after it relentlessly, you can do it. You can have it. And so I'm even more committed now to the message in the book than I was when I started writing it, because it works, and it's worked for me over and over and over again. When we say yes to ourselves, something happens. Something just happens in the universe for you to make whatever that is you have in your heart to do, it happens.
Wow. Well, congrats again on your success. That's incredible. But I know you just talked a little bit about, you know, past experiences really shape you. And I think a lot of people rely too heavily on their past experiences as their identity. And now it's not going to be too surprising, but before I was in IT, I was actually a journalist. I worked for an NBC affiliate, and I, you know, had that kind of the inner critic as I moved into the IT world. But what about the people on here that always say, I'd love to try cybersecurity, or I'd love to do this, or I'd love to write a book, but they don't have those past experiences to really help give them that push? You know, you had some past experiences, but you had never had an author past experience. So really, what made you do that?
It was a personal, it was purpose, I think. I think we know ourselves when there's something in us that just won't let go. I don't know if anyone else on the call has ever felt something in them that just kept bubbling up and resurfacing, like, I really maybe should try that thing. And I think we have a commitment to pursue those things, obviously within reason. Like, I mean, if it's just, wow, that would just put us in risk for, you know, our own, everyone knows subjectively what that should look like. But I think the biggest thing is to trust where you've come from, and that just like you've overcome in those scenarios, you can overcome, or you can win in the next one. And it doesn't mean the win is going to look like it's looked in the past. It means the win could be you realize that you go that direction and realize, actually, I don't like this. That's a win, because you've tried it. You've actually tried it, and you saw that it was something that didn't actually suit your fancy, basically. And that's okay. It's not failure. It's learning, because you can catalog and say, well, I know for sure that's not something I want to do. And I would say, particularly for someone that's saying they're trying something new, it's okay. Sometimes when we walk into something new, that imposter syndrome will really, really rear its ugly head, because we feel incapable, incompetent, unqualified to sit at the table, all those things. But I always like to say this, is that it's not incompetence that we're feeling. It's actually growing pains. It's growing pains.
And I think that's awesome. And I think that's why so many people don't get into that leadership role they want, or that management position, or move up, right? People put themselves at the end of a career ladder because they don't know what to do. So what would you tell people in general, but especially women who really have an issue with owning their strengths as a leader? What would you say? How can we own that better?
Sure. I would, if it's hard for you to accept it, I would start maybe doing a 360 analysis. Ask other people, what do you see as my top 2 to 3 strengths? Because sometimes it's hard for us to own it, but when we hear other people say it, we're like, oh, wow, the perception is that's the perception. And you might be surprised to hear that there's echoes of the same thing. And so that can help you even further strengthen your commitment or brand identity, if you will. And then the other thing is, even outside of getting that external perspective, is to be comfortable with saying, I am good at something. And that's a big part of imposter syndrome, is that sometimes we can be so afraid to say, I'm good at that, or I'm great at that, because it sounds like we're bragging. But it's actually not. It's actually owning the gifts that you were given. And if you think about a gift, and I like to say this all the time, is if you were given a gift, or you gave a gift to someone and they never used it or never owned it, how would you really feel? Who would feel great about that? The same principle is that you have a gift that you've been given, and you got to own it. And it's not bragging. It's recognizing that you are the solution to someone's problem, or a problem that something is experiencing. So it could be an organization. You are brought in to be a solution provider. We buy products because they're solutions. It's the same reason why people would hire you, because you are a solution. Solutions toothpaste doesn't say, I'm ashamed to be toothpaste. No, I'm going to make your breath smell good. All these things, right? It's no shame in that. No, you own that solution, because people want solutions. And when you can offer solutions, they want you around.
That's a great point. Well, I'm a big Glennon Doyle fan, and I read Untamed. I don't know if, oh yeah, you've read it. I know, it's such a good book, but something they obviously talk a lot about in there is, your masculine and your feminine qualities, and owning some of that. And I think a lot of the times women don't necessarily always want to be leaders because they don't see other women leaders. And, a lot of that's obviously coming out of that cage and really embracing that characteristic there. But, sometimes women are told or made to believe that we should adopt more masculine qualities to be confident or to lead. I mean, how do you combat that?
I think that's so unfortunate, because we have such amazing and innate traits as women. If you think about it, leadership is about getting people energized about a vision, something that's greater than them. Women, we are so good at that. We are so good at building community. And that's really what community is getting people committed to something other than themselves. And so it's so important for us to embrace that. And the other piece of that is that as a woman, oftentimes we look for not even consensus, but we take other people's perspectives into account. And a big part of leadership is having diversity of thought, so that you don't fall prey to groupthink, for example, which can tank any type of, innovation or anything like that. And so as a woman, we have the ability to drive innovation, because we don't just want people that look like us or think like us all the time, because we value different thoughts, and we can embrace them. And we can oftentimes be, inquisitive about what someone else thinks, because we are naturally, inert, we're nurturers, so to speak, so that we want to see what someone else thinks, and we value it and make them feel like they're a part of a conversation oftentimes, even if they don't look like us. And that's really important in leadership today, especially. The other thing is, as when we think about leadership, leadership is about being judicious and fair and trying to bring that to make sure that we are approaching decisions, not just, on a whim, but carefully, really strategic in thought. And I think oftentimes women, we're told we're so emotional, but honestly, a lot of times women, we will, if it's a very important decision, we'll take the time to think it through. And we'll try to, again, get different perspectives to arrive at a thought and our decision. And so I think the same thing is in leadership, is that when you can do that, you can definitely land on some really good places that have brought consensus and a sense of cohesiveness and commitment from the team that you're leading.
Awesome. Well, we want to hear from everyone too. So we've got a few more questions we'll ask, but I put it in the chat. So while I ask this next one, think of your questions for Velera and we'll read them out. But I'll say everyone has a different love language, right? And some people are better public speakers or better writers, or they're going to leave the little memento. How do women, or just people in general, toot their own horn without sounding too braggy? What advice would you have?
Yeah, so I like to say well, there's a couple of things, but the first one is that no one knows what you don't talk about. If you really, it's kind of like this, is if Chick-fil-A never put a sign out, would I really know to go Chick-fil-A? Probably not. I'd have to find the building. And so it really goes back to, and everyone's motivation is different, right? But if you really want people to, as leaders, there is a certain brand that we get attached to us. Even if we don't aspire to it, there is a certain brand. And so if you really want a certain brand attached to you, it's important to provide information so that directs your brand. So what information do you share? What information do you talk about? How do people experience you? That's really, really important, because that experience is your brand experience. And so I think oftentimes we have to really think about what we're conveying, what we're projecting oftentimes. And I hope, Heather, I'm answering the question, but you asked it a couple ways, but but hopefully they answered it.
Yeah. No, just tangible takeaways that we could use on that aspect. We're not walking around printing our resumes and putting them on our boss's desk and highlighting things and saying, acknowledge that I did this. Because I agree, a lot of the times we're the unsung heroes in a lot of aspects. And it's hard a lot of times, especially if you're moving up in a company. I mean, I've been at my organization for 8 years and I've never written a resume at it, right? And it's like one of those things. I actually brought this up with my boss the other day, as it was like, I need to write some of this down, because how are you going to know that I did it one day? And so I know I've been trying to do that myself, but I mean, do you, in your book, I don't know if you talk about this too much, but do you tell people to almost like in your quarterly plan or your yearly plan, do you write out a new resume in a sense?
Yes. Well, I think, if you're always updating your resume, right? But I think the most important thing is what I found sometimes is that we don't want to talk about ourselves a lot, but then we don't realize how it actually hurts us from getting what we really want potentially, because decisions will be made that are made without all the information about what we're bringing to the table. So keep in mind, it doesn't matter. They're going to be decisions on who gets a raise. And that decision is based on who can show what they've done throughout the year. And so it's, again, when you go back to legacy, you're protecting that legacy. You have a responsibility to say, oh, wait a minute, hold on. Let me help you understand all that I've done in my role to help the bottom line, whether it be cost savings, revenue generation, process improvement, efficiencies, whatever that is. I have brought something to this organization, or whether it be to, a client. Oh, client, here, we were able to save you this. Because again, when people can see the value that you bring, they don't have a problem writing the checks. But when they're not sure, it is your responsibility, our responsibility, to make it very plain and clear for them so they can keep writing the checks, keep cutting those checks. That's important. But the other part of it too is, yes, to your point, a lot of times what I have found, even in throughout my career, I have seen that sometimes we make our one-on-one meetings with our managers about projects, not about our development. And so you have to be committed to, if you're in a corporate setting, committed to having developmental conversations. That's separate from talking about the work you're doing. It's entwined a little bit, but it's definitely about, hey, here's where I want to go and grow. And here's what I've done. And here are the successes that I've had. And here's why I want to do that. Because if you got past performance, you definitely have a strong case for, here's why I want to go here next. And then the same thing for your clients, you know, being able to share with them, hey, if maybe it's end of year, this is what we were able to do for you. And this is how much we value your business. And we just want to let you know that, you know, we're always working for you. You know, we're always working for you. You gotta tell people what you're doing. No one knows unless you tell them.
And that's such a great point that I agree, especially in this virtual world, and we're hopping on Zooms and it's harder to have, you know, that small talk. We're having less development conversations and everything is. It's a status meeting and then you're hopping off so you can, you know, take your makeup off already type of thing for the day. But no, exactly. I love this. I mean, and so I know something that Denise put in there and Laura seconded. How do we go about creating and finding that brand?
Good question. So finding and creating our brand, really the brand is you. So that really goes around, what are your strengths? What do people know you as? And then most importantly, what do you want to be known as? Because they could be two very distinct things, because and sometimes you might have to change perception or evolve perception or bring yourself to the forefront and become an active player in owning your brand. And really that's around, what do you want to do? Where you want to go, right? When we think of, you know, my husband and I were having this conversation, we were laughing because I was thinking, you know, when I think of a charbroiled burger, I think of Burger King because that's their brand, right? I'm more about the Impossible Whopper these days, but I digress. That's the brand, right? But when I think of French fries, I think of McDonald's. Because they've positioned they've positioned in my head, at least. I don't know, is anybody else a McDonald's fry over Burger King fry compared to?
I think of McDonald's. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. McDonald's, because of their brand. That is their brand. They've put it out there so much that when you think of good fries, fast food, more often you're going to think of McDonald's. But when you think of charbroiled burgers, you think of Burger King. My point is that you have to think about, what do you want to be known as? Do you want to be known as an IT leader? Then that should be your brand. What does that look like? And then who are you as a person? What are the certain principles and tenets that you stand on? Can we come up with 3 or 4? That's your brand. Then that's what you create that and experience when you're in meetings, right? How do you position your conversations? What do you share? If you're even on social, because social, unfortunately, is a big part of it. If you're on Twitter, if you're on, you know, LinkedIn, what are you sharing? Is it information related to your brand? I always say it's fun to have entertaining things and whatnot on social, but really be intentional about what you share. If it's not your very personal, you know, maybe your personal Facebook page. But other than that, if there are people that are connected to you professionally there, be very strategic about what you share, because that's your brand.
Agreed. And I like that, even what Amanda put in there too, that if you're a boss, ask people about their development and ask them about their brand. And you're right. If you're not having these dialogues or conversations with your boss, you ask them, flip the script on them too. And I think that's a leadership move right there. So, well, I like this question too. What is your favorite professional advice you've ever received?
Oh gosh. My favorite professional advice was actually a conversation I had with someone who started out as a manager of mine, became really more of a mentor, sponsor, coach. And I was actually leaving a company and going to another company. And so I called him. He's actually at the former company, not the new one, mind you. And so I said, hey, I'm getting ready to take another opportunity. And I said, but I'm not quite happy with the salary. And he said, oh, what's the difference? What do you want? I said, well, I want this. And he said, well, if they offered you what they already offered you, they definitely have the rest. So just go back and ask. And he made it so matter of fact that it was like, duh, why don't you just go back and ask for more? And that was such a simple conversation that totally exploded my assumptions about myself. That really, again, began the churning of my worth as well. And he said, no, if they already offered you that salary, they've got more in the bucket. Just go back and ask. And sure enough, I went back and asked, terrified and all. I went back and asked, and I got it. So the best advice that I ever got was just to go and ask. Just go and ask.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know there's so many books out there, like Never Split the Difference and things like that. But do you have some content, like other books or podcasts or speakers or TED Talks that really helped inspire you as you wrote this book? And like I said, we'll raffle off a book here in a few, but everyone obviously will have a link on how you can get it. But what other content inspired you when doing the research?
Yeah, so funny enough, I tried not to read so many other people's books as I was writing this book, because I had zero interest in gleaning anyone else's advice, right? I wanted to be truly authentic. But I've read a lot of different books in a lot of genres, everything from Jen Cicero's You're a Badass, Rachel Hollis's, Stop Apologizing, Minda Hart's The Memo, like all these different books that really speak to different aspects of us as women, being ambitious, having goals, and most importantly, being authentic to ourselves and asking for what we really want. But those are definitely some books that I would, I have read. And definitely would recommend.
Yeah, and I'm a big power poser. I feel like I'm always like Issa Rae and Insecure, like talking to myself in the mirror, like, you got this, Heather. But so What are some of your other personal affirmations and routines, practices that you keep you best confident? I like that, Tiffany. Good question.
Yes. What are some tips you have for?
Yeah, so personal affirmations, routines, and practices that keep you confident.
You know what? Honestly, my first thing is my faith. So I'm very much on prayer and meditation. At the end of the day, that's what I'm doing, because this is much bigger than me. And I'm just confident that things are going to work out for me as they should, but that I have a personal responsibility to walk in them and through them. So that's one thing. The other thing I like to do is I have to become a tester. And that, it doesn't sound like an affirmation, but it really is I become a tester in really trying to figure out, where do I stand in the grand scheme of things that I want? And so I ask sometimes just to see if the answer is going to be no. And that is my way of affirming, okay, you got that. Or, okay, there's some room to grow there. So again, it doesn't sound like an affirmation, but it definitely is. And then the other one I would say is, I think, Heather, you mentioned earlier, someone mentioned about the colors, my colors. So I've become this big proponent of colors. I love colors now. My lipstick, my dress, I don't buy black suits anymore or dark color suits anymore. They're all either this color, bright pinks, reds, bright orange, because I don't want to fit in anymore. I'm not in a space where I feel like I'm required to buy into someone else's perception of who Velera should be. I'm who I am. But when I open my mouth, when I deliver the results, you'll know that I'm the person you want on your team. I'm the person that you want in the room with you. And so that's my affirmation, is I just had to break out of the box of, you need to look a certain way.
That's awesome. And a lot of people on here are either mothers or, sisters, or like really with these empowering women in their lives. But how else do you encourage, the other women in your life specifically?
You said, how do I encourage the other women in my life?
Yeah.
Well, I do it a couple of ways. Most people tell me if they tell me something, they know inevitably I'm going to come back to them and ask them, so where are you on this? And so I'm a big dream pusher. I believe in, if you tell them you have a dream and to do something, you want to do it. Okay, we're going to talk about the reasons you can't do it, only but for so long. Now, what are you going to do to get it done? And so I find that it either works very well for the people around me, or they don't want to tell me because they're like, no, we know if we tell you, we're going to have to actually do it. Which is like, well, because I believe in them. I believe that they can do it. I believe that, yes, it can be hard, but I'm responsible for cheerleading and helping gently push the people around me. So I'm a big dream pusher,
That's awesome. And you're right. You just got to ask. You just got to ask them to share their dreams. Yep. Well, so I've been wondering the same question that Denise put in there too. She said, if you feel comfortable with sharing, what was a failure that stuck with you, and how did you overcome it, and what did you learn?
Okay, so let's see. Personal, professional. There's a lot of them. Okay, so we'd be here for a while. It's a lot of them. But I talk about them in the book. I talk about a lot of failures for that very reason. But let's start personal, because that's just, probably what we wouldn't expect. So for a very long time, I honestly, the message that I told myself is that I could not be loved, that I could never love anyone. And I told myself that because a lot of things that I experienced in my childhood that were very traumatic for me. And so the way that it showed up wasn't the people that I dated. I dated people that were either not committed, or I was always afraid to ask, are we in a relationship? I was saying yes way more than I was saying no, when I should have been saying no. I was bringing myself to where they were as opposed to bringing them up to where I was, not because I was better, but because I really hadn't confirmed who I was to myself. I was like a chameleon. If I was dating this guy, then I would be this thing. If I was dating this other guy, I was something else. I was never firm on who I was. I was never sold on me. I was trying to just fit in and get in where I could fit in and wanted that acceptance. And so for a very long time, I just had a lot of these dead-end spiraling relationships, all because of what I decided in my own head. And so when I finally looked at how much time that I was wasting, and I talk about this one experience in the book when it was a guy that I was dating, and he, was saying something. I was afraid to ask him in a relationship. And then he said, well, I just assumed when you weren't answering your phone, you were somebody else. And I thought, you could have hit me. You could have knocked me over with a pin right then. I felt so, excuse the word, but really stupid at that moment. I really did. I felt like, you big dummy, you have been with this guy playing the role of girlfriend, doing all these things, and he's out here dating other people. At that moment, I started to really shift how I looked at what I demanded in relationships. And my model became, I need to eliminate far faster. I need to find out if this person is for me or not. And it worked. Me saying in relationships and having the courage to say, I'm not going to be your forever girlfriend. What are your intentions? When do you see this relationship progressing? Where do you see it progressing? Becoming adamant about me and my time is when I started to see things shift. And lo and behold, the last person I dated, they weren't serious. I had to cut the cord. Not much longer after that, my husband came along and actually in 6 months decided I was going to be his wife, that I was the right person for him, proposed. We got married 9 months later, and here we are 8 years later. So I had a lot of years of failure. So that's personal. Professional, oh gosh, quite a few. So, I went through a lot of periods of time where I did not ask. When I got an offer, I would not negotiate, because I was afraid. I thought, well, I'm just this little old, honestly, if I'm honest, this little old Black girl from Southern California, born to a teenage mom. I should just be happy that you all offered me the job. I should be happy that you offered me a seat at this table, because surely you could get someone more qualified than me. You could. So why would I dare not have the audacity to ask for more money. And so I carried that into a lot of rooms with me, and I did not negotiate. I did not ask until literally I started to realize that I was shortchanging myself. And then I started saying, wait a minute. And then when I had mentors and coaches that came around and say, wait, you can go ask for more, I started to get that confidence to say, okay, now I ask all the time.
Well, I love the vulnerability there. And we'll ask this as the last question, because I think this is a great one to end on. And so thank you, Michelle and Janae, for putting that in there. But I'll read what Michelle wrote. She said, I'm a 6 foot tall, confident, honest with my opinions, and rarely back down when I'm challenged. I'm sure if I were a man, I would be applauded for these qualities. But as a woman, the message I'm regularly getting is that I'm too much. How do you handle making people comfortable so that they're not intimidated by you while not compromising who you are at the same time? Heck yes, girl. I love that.
I love it, Michelle. It's funny that you're right. People will often say you're too much, or I'm too much, or we're too much when we don't back down from a challenge. I think the thing it goes back to is relationship building. What's the goal? What's the purpose? If the goal is to build a bridge, in order to connect or get something done, that's one thing. I think we just have to consider sometimes, okay, well, what is that perception and why? Why do you feel that way? And it becomes a reason or excuse. Because if I'm honest, Michelle, there can be things that I say that could make you feel like that I'm too much, right? There are things. And I could easily say, well, that's just your problem. But sometimes the self-reflection is necessary to say, okay, did I do that in a way that made her that made her feel that way. And it's okay. But if you find yourself always having to apologize, that's not okay. It's like, okay, this is who I am. I want to be in relationship with people. So I want to be, whatever that, that is to me, but I don't need to change who I am all the time. It just means maybe I need to find another circle. I think that's really what it boils down to. So I think there's the balance of self-reflection in order to be the best that we are in relationships, personal, professional, and not always having to change who we are in order to be in relationships with people. So finding some different circles.
I agree. It's all relative. It's like too much and too little comes from your own past. So,
exactly.
Well, Velera, thank you so much. If you haven't been able to scroll while we go into who's hiring, who's looking, I want you to take a look and scroll through. You are changing some lives here tonight. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're absolutely welcome. Thank you so much, Heather. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, so don't hop off yet, everyone. We've still got some fun, something that we always love to do. Get your applause in there. Thank you. I appreciate everyone's love for her. She was amazing. But we want to be here to show up for you guys, to encourage you. That's why we have this organization. It's women supporting women, and we have some men on here who support women as well. So we want to make sure that you are asking for what you want and that dream. And some of you, it's that next job. So I want to ask, unmute yourself or post it in here if you're hiring or if you're looking, and let's make some connections that could change some more lives.
Hi, I am hiring for a senior solutions architect to join our firm. We're globally distributed. We've got offices in New York, in London, and in Virginia, of all places, in Hong Kong. But we, of course, with the pandemic, we're taking an opportunity to do a remote work first policy. So this position, I'll put a link in for everybody to see, but if anybody has interested in the client-facing developer role, please reach out. I'd be happy to talk to you about it some more. Thanks.
Sarah, can you share what company that is for?
Yes, I ought to do that. We're called Cosaic, and we're a fintech firm, small and a growth stage. We were a startup for a number of years, and we're kind of on a growth stage curve currently. And we have two main product lines that we sell into the financial services firm industry. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. If you can note that in the chat, just the link and the name of the company, that would be fantastic.
Yep, we're going to say the same thing, because we have a couple of venues. We're going to send a follow-up email with the recording of this, so you can go back and hear some of the tidbits again, and we'll put a list of the companies that are hiring. But another way that we can connect you, and we'll talk a little bit about this when we get to membership aspect, but if you are a member of AWT, you actually get access to our Slack channel, and in there we have a job board section where you can actually post, and then we'll put you in a private message with whoever's hiring, whoever's looking, so you can actually start making those connections and sharing resumes. So I know, Diana, you just said we're hiring. Do you want to unmute and tell us?
Of course. Hi, guys. I'm with BB Imaging and Consulting. You got to meet Blanca just a bit ago. Velera, thank you so much for such a great topic and subject matter. It was very telling, and I loved the confirmations. Just know that we are, I posted the positions on the chat, and we'll also be sharing it on the Slack line. So we are venturing into a new field, and we're very, very excited about the next steps. And telehealth has been a big opportunity for many in this unique environment, and we're actually kind of venturing into that world. So we're excited to go into some technical roles, and happy to have a conversation about those whenever you guys have interest.
Awesome, and thank you again for sponsoring. We're excited to have you.
The company is also hiring. I work at Sensei. We're an early stage startup, very R&D focused, but we're hiring a bunch of engineering positions. I'll put it in the chat. Happy to talk about it more if anyone's interested. We're also hiring a product manager that hasn't been posted yet, but it will be in the next few days. What Sensei does is uses video of the eye to return a result on cognitive behavior and neurological behavior. So it's pretty complicated, but I didn't know anything about it before I started a year ago, and it's a lot of fun, super interesting. So happy to chat about it offline.
That's amazing. Tammy, I saw that you posted in there that you're project manager looking for a new role in PMP. So yeah, if you're also looking, I'm mute too.
So hi, I'm Sharon Leindecker. I am currently in the treasurer role for Austin Women Technology, but I also work for the city of Austin. And the city of Austin, even though we are in a budget crunch, there are some very key positions that are being hired right now. So the department that I work for is Austin Water Utility, and as y'all know, can't really be a city without clean and affordable water. So there are a number of IT positions within the utility, but I personally have a position that's going to be reporting directly to me, and that's going to be an IT security analyst. That position will be posting in the next couple of weeks, but there are also some systems analyst positions. There's a data architect position that we're hiring for. So there's a number of IT specific positions within the city of Austin, not just with water utility, but of course I'm going to plug the utility for a little bit. But definitely if you have any questions about any of those positions, please reach out to me. I'll also post that on Slack as well. And it's going to be austincityjobs.org, and I'll put that in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you. I saw Michelle, you're a product manager looking for the right company to grow. You want to tell us more?
So the last company I worked for, I was actually the director of customer and product success. It was a small company. There was maybe 25 of us. So my team did everything from business development to quality assurance. But a lot of what I did was I was the product manager and the project manager and the program manager and, you know, lots of hats. But my favorite was the product management. I loved doing the research. I loved collaborating with everybody on a big picture scale. I just enjoyed the creativity required of brainstorming, problem solving, and all that. So I'm really looking to find a company where I can take those skills and my past experiences and help them grow while they also help me grow. So I'm really more interested in finding the right company than I am in finding the right job. So that's me.
Sounds like you should ask for what you want. Good thing we got some tips on that. Well, anyone else? Okay, and I know I got a couple people just message me about the Slack channel, and so I'll do a little spiel about that. But some of the incentives to become an AWT member, it's $60 for the year, and that gets you access to these events for free. So right now we actually have 3 in October. We've been averaging about 2 each month over the pandemic, and then one to 2 when we were in person. So as an AWT member, it gets you access to these events for free. It gets you into our Slack channel. I can send you that link if you are a member. And there we have the consistent communication, right? That is where this group comes to life, where we make these connections. We support each other. We share these shout outs. We brag on each other. We ask for that mentorship. We mentor others. We post these career opportunities. So definitely a great way to get involved in the organization. It is, you know, what you put into it is what you get out of it. And so we'd love to see these familiar faces come back, but appreciate all of our members. So Denise, if you want to put up our last slides, we'll kick off the rest of the evening. But if you guys are, you know, thinking now that you are looking for a new job or getting that confidence, put that in there. But we want to shout out our boss ladies. So as a lot of you know, we nominate people each month that are just really stepping up either in our community or in our Austin Women in Technology organization. So Chris Benovich and Lindsay Nickel, we appreciate you and love you so much. And congrats, October boss ladies.
Thank you.
Congratulations. We're super excited to have you join the boss ladies.
Woo! Thank you very much.
And Lindsay will be speaking here actually coming up soon. So that ties right into that. So our next upcoming events, next Tuesday, we're doing a self-defense course. And it's not just about those physical moves, right? It's all about getting that confidence physically, mentally, and emotionally when you walk into a new space. We have another virtual happy hour and a panel with NXP and AWT all about leading through adversity on October 27th. And on November 11th, our new boss lady, Lindsay Nickel, will be talking about imposter syndrome. So definitely this was getting our hearts and minds right for that. We're about to do a raffle for the book, but here's a link to get a copy of it. And then obviously Velera's Instagram and Twitter. And then if you have any membership questions, there's my information as well. I'd love to get you on Slack if you're not a member yet. But Dom, do you want to take it away and do the raffle?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, while everybody was listening and participating in the Who's Hiring session, I was putting everyone's name into a virtual hat, and I have chosen as our winner tonight, Miss Tiffany Egan.
Woo!
Congratulations.
Congrats.
Congrats, Tiffany.
Tiffany, I have your email address, so I'm going to email you and just request your address so we can get that over to you.
While we were listening to her, I'd already put her book in my cart in Amazon. So
Sounds like you have a gift to give for someone then. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
and it's autographed, right?
Yeah.
Autograph. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
You are welcome. Yes. But I do have virtual inserts for anyone else that buys the book. Feel free to, you can email me on velerawilson.com. Just email me and I will send you a, let me see here, one of these wonderful stickies that have my information on it as well, and I'll sign it.
Well, awesome. Well, feel free to stick around. Obviously, we'll do more networking. We have BB Imaging on here to talk more about jobs if you are looking and want a smaller venue to chat about that, or if you have any other questions for Velera, feel free to stick around. But thank you, everyone, for joining us. What an amazing event and topic and group of people here to support each other. So
I agree 1,000%. I thank you, Velera, for your great wisdom and insight. My greatest nugget is the ask for the why, the no, because you want the reason or the excuse. Love that. That's my big takeaway. And Heather, you did an absolutely amazing job. We're going to sign you up to facilitate everything from now on. you did fantastic. It was a great evening. And stick around and we can just chat and do the fun, get to network stuff now.
Yes, I'm here. I'll be on for another few minutes if anyone has any other questions. I'm definitely happy to answer them. And thank you so much for having me. I truly appreciate the honor and the opportunity. And I hopefully you ladies found it useful and valuable.
Very much. And I know it's the Bachelorette night, so there's Taryn and Shay in our same Hollywood Squares box for us. So you gotta run to the Bachelor. We get it.
So Velera, this is Sharon Leidecker. I do have a question for you. And it did get posted in the chat, and it's totally not related. So you grew up in Southern California, but you live in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got to ask you, Dodgers or Braves?
I honestly don't even keep up with baseball. I don't. And I've moved so much to where I've just lost commitments to like one particular team.
Right.
It's just, but I will say my alma mater, hands down, always will get my love and support, USC. So I'm a Trojan for life. If you talk college football, then we can say I'll say the Trojans all day.
Well, I've been lucky that I'm a Braves fan because my personal college team has not been doing very well, UT. So
I just did. Now, if you would have said Falcons or, well, who's the new LA team? LA what? There's not the Raiders anymore, but I would have said definitely not the Falcons.
Oakland moved to Las Vegas, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
we've got some. So my boyfriend's Marine buddy grew up in Southern California, and he is a Dodgers and Raiders fan. So I was kind of curious if he was going to follow, the Raiders when they moved to Las Vegas, but he's a Raiders fan through and through. So
I'd definitely say the Raiders over the Falcons any day right now, especially.
I love the fact that you wear color. I also wear a lot of color.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember I was I went shopping with some friends once for a job interview, and they're like, "You'd wear that much color at a job interview?" I was like, "I'm gonna wear this much color to work. Why would I not wear this much color to a job interview?"
Yes, seriously. I mean, it makes me feel good, especially now. And I just feel like, to your point, one, maybe I'm in marketing too. So it kind of is like, well, if you all don't want color in marketing, I don't know where you want it. Right. But it's me. And I think that's just what I'm committed to at this point. Maybe because I'm getting older. I just like, listen, you get me as I am, or you don't get me at all. It's one of the two. But yeah, just being me. And I think it allows other people to do the same. I think when you're just yourself, and, I think as long as you're delivering results and you're driving them, who cares what color you wear?
Agreed.
We had a speaker on here. I don't know if a couple of y'all were on it, but she wore a tiara the whole time. And while she was speaking, and that's what she said, is she was like, it made me feel confident. It made me feel good. And like I said, I'm a big power poser, but I agree. And I think that's what this remote life has taught some of us is you got to feel good to look good. And that doesn't necessarily have to be in a pencil skirt and heels. So yes.
Especially now. I mean, it's like, hey, I can't think of the last time I've put on heels. I'm like, listen, if I'm wearing socks, I'm doing good,
I don't think I've worn real shoes in a couple of months.
I mean, yeah, seriously. I think I probably bought like 8 new pairs of shoes before COVID hit. And I have yet to wear, like, maybe I've worn 1 pair or 2 pair twice. Everything else is just socks and tennis shoes now. It's like, there's no reason to wear anything else.
Yeah, I think you guys are onto something with the, talking about the color. Same with talking about being too much. It's like, you got to be yourself if you want them to know who you really are. I mean, don't pretend to be somebody else in an interview or anywhere else, or you're not going to be at the right place.
That's true. I subscribe to a good friend in therapy. I believe in all of the above. But I was having this conversation with my therapist once, and she said, if you pretend to be an orange but you're really an apple, how you're going to feel uncomfortable around oranges because you've been pretending the whole time, and you're never going to feel like yourself. And I thought that was one of the smartest things I'd heard her say, honestly, because I thought, yeah, if you're always something else, you're not going to feel comfortable. And so just be you.
On those lines, some of the worst advice I've always been given is about dating. They're like, Michelle, you're already so tall. Don't wear heels, wear flats. And I'm like, no, because you know what? If they're bothered by my height, they're going to be bothered about everything about me. So no, I'm just going to weed them out. I'm going to wear those 3-inch heels for about an hour, and I'm going to slip them off and go barefoot. But that's another story.
I love it. It's true. It's so true. But literally, to your point though, Michelle, we talk about shrinking and hiding, like figuratively, you would literally be shrinking. Like how much more uncomfortable is that? You know what I mean? Like, it's just not, to your point, like you said, weed them out sooner than later. I'm with you. Get them out the way faster.
I know. I always say anything you boys can do, I can do in 3-inch heels and perfect lipstick. But yeah, and to your point about failure, I mean, I was so depressed one time after, quitting. I was going to be fired from a job, and it was very much because I didn't fit in. And it was one of those things where I was going to have to compromise my values to agree with the leadership there. But it's something where, because I stayed with my values, I ended up at a company where I am thriving and I am thought of very highly, and I'm so glad I did. And it's going through that failure that I think really gets you where you need to be. And so
I agree. That's why, Velera, I asked you some of those curveball questions. So thanks for bearing with me too. But I agree. It's like, we get told no a lot, and we get told that, I'm such a perfectionist to the core. Like, I mean, I know a couple of people on here run that Texas Conference for Women. If you didn't watch the Brave Not Perfect, I was super into that because that has so been me. I would always consider myself brave, but it was because I was good at everything that I did. And it's like, that is not brave. I only did things I was good at. So I loved that.
I think that we have to be able to take no as an answer, because we need to be able to give no as our own answer, right? If you want to be able to say no, you have to be able to hear no. So I think that we've got to stop thinking about that as a rejection, and think about it, I think, the way that Velera framed it today. I mean, it's a valid answer, right? No is a valid answer. We want to be able to say that. We want people to respect no when we say no. But you can ask why, and you can get that reason, and then you can learn from that reason, or you can get the excuse and move on.
Yeah, it's painful. It can be very painful, but I mean, it's no more painful than spinning your wheels for a long time and wasting time. I've seen it happen so much, and it burns me up, because we can find out so much more. Like Nicole, you just said, you left somewhere where you were going to get fired, but you found a place where you're actually thriving and actually, are thought of very highly. And it's such a contrast to where maybe you were before. And I feel like sometimes we're preventing our own opportunities because we're staying around somewhere that was probably going to say no anyway, and not allow us to thrive. And so I'm just a firm believer, find out sooner than later so you can get to the place that you're going to be thriving in.
Especially, I feel like one of the best things I ever heard was that men are waffle brains and women are spaghetti. They can compartmentalize, right? If they're told no at work, but they can go home with the confidence there, or things like that. They're able to compartmentalize part of that. But women, we're spaghetti. If we're having a bad day at work, we're having a bad day at home, and we're having a bad day with our relationships. And I think that goes in even with that confidence there, right? It's like, if you're feeling like a failure at work, I mean, I bring that home to my personal life, and then I'm taking that spin on there. And I think you do, at the end of the day, you have to look at it as, is this an excuse? Or if it's a no, move on, but look at the other areas in your life that are not excuses, that people are showing up for you, and don't bring that spaghetti brain into it.
Exactly. You're right, Heather.
Yeah, I look back now and I wonder how many times I felt I was being loyal, and it was really a lack of confidence to go seek something new, right? You can trick yourself into thinking that you're doing something good, but it's really a lack of confidence. Oh, yeah. So I look back now, and I there's probably a good 10 years of my life where that statement was probably true.
Yeah, I'm with you. We can carry that both in our personal and professional lives. I always say the way that we might act in our personal lives can translate to how we are in our work life, because it's the same thing. It's relationships. It just happen to be work attached to it. If so who's ever been in a relationship longer than they should have been? Me. So you stay somewhere in a company that's not treating you well, or doesn't provide you growth opportunity, is dead end. It's no different than being in a dead end personal relationship. So to your point, Emmy, it's we're loyal. I think women, we're just loyal people. Most of us, obviously. I can't speak for everyone, but in general, we're very loyal people. We're nurturers. We're communal. We value being attached to something and someone, and that's great. It makes us great human beings. The challenge becomes when we're attached and loyal to something that we shouldn't be loyal to, because it's not even loyal to us, or it's not good for us.
Right. Yeah, that's why I think it's nice if you can find somewhere that's like supporting your strengths, and you're not just, kicking rocks, right? And if you're somewhere that's constantly trying to tell you you have to change, and you have to be better, or you're not good enough, you keep trying to change, and it makes you feel bad about yourself, and you start to believe it, right? But versus somewhere that's supporting you and telling you you're great, they actually are making you better. They're supporting your strengths and making you better. It feels good.
It does.
Actually, recently was going through a job interview process, and kind of throughout the process, there were just so many red flags that were kind of flying everywhere. And I was like, this probably isn't the right fit for me. And then we get to I had the final interview, and it, I wait like 2 days, and I get the email that I didn't get the position. And it was only then, like once I got the position, that I was like, oh, started really like fighting my own intuition about like not wanting the job. And now all of a sudden I was like, oh, but wait, this was such a good opportunity. And, all those things, kind of talking myself back. And, you know, I had to like keep coming back to the fact that like, you had so many red flags. Like, you need to trust yourself that this wasn't the right fit in general. And like, this is just a clearer sign that this wasn't right. And yeah, pivot to something that's better.
Yep. Did you ask why they said no, or were you just happy that you didn't get put in there?
Yeah, so I knew someone who worked there, and it was a panel interview, and one of the panelists said that I was very cold, which was very interesting, I think. Interesting feedback based on the conversation that I had. But I also didn't necessarily respond well with him either. So I felt like once I got that feedback that I was like, you know, we probably weren't the best fit to be on a team together if both of us walked away from that conversation being like not 100% like connected. And yeah, so now I actually started a new position last week. And so the team is just so open and welcoming. And so it was really cool to see night and day how the interviews were very different and the reception was very different. And yeah, it's been an awesome turnaround.
So you got to know that was a positive. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, somewhere else, but
yeah.
Yeah.
But the no for the previous job, that would have, you think about a bad experience, that was a positive no, right? And then it led to a yes, that is an even better experience.
Absolutely. That's a good way of phrasing it.
Yeah, so I posted this in the chat, and you know, I had experience with my old team. I've been in my current position for 2 years, and I've been with my old team for, gosh, I think 12 years. And we've gone through a lot of transition through that time, and it was just really it was a very painful decision to leave for me. I mean, I felt like I was carving out a part of myself and kind of like giving that to them, and like not having that, it felt like a hole. So it felt like a divorce to me. It really did. But you know, looking back on that now, it was a good decision. I mean, it was the right time, and I'd gotten some really good mentorship from both male and female allies. And yeah, I was very thankful that I had the opportunity to leave, and felt like I was in a group that was very supportive. I mean, it was definitely a hand hitting the fire for the first couple of months, but ultimately it was a good decision. And I know that it can't be easy to leave a place that you felt that you have contributed so much to and just given so much of your life to, but you're not given the resources that you feel like that you need, or you're not given, you know, quite frankly, the support that, you know, or the feedback, positive feedback about the you know, the job you're doing. If you're getting more positive feedback from outside of your group than inside of your group, then that kind of tells you that you're doing the right things, but maybe for the wrong people. And so that's kind of how I felt. And I made the decision to leave that team, and it was the right decision. It was hard, but it was the right decision.
That's really good. Yeah.
Good. You can't want it more than someone else, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So Sharon says, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I like that you said you had the opportunity to leave. And that's what a lot of times people don't realize. It's like, it's an opportunity, you know, the horizon's open. And, you know, I was with a company for 10 years and now, you know, have transitioned. And this has been like the most alive I've felt in, you know, 12 years now. So it's just, you know, it's an opportunity and it's a change. It's a struggle sometimes, but it's also just, again, such a growth piece that just makes you feel more alive and empowered.
I have a question that makes me think of something that you said during your talk tonight that Sharon just mentioned. And, you know, some of the struggles when we make these changes, and we're confident that maybe these things are the right decisions, but we don't know everything. We're not good at it yet. And so those growing pains are still there. Do you have any advice on how we can acknowledge what is a growing pain and what is a lack of confidence? Because I'm kind of in that, I've taken on a new project at work, and I know in the end it's going to get there and it's going to be okay. But sometimes in the moment, it's really, really hard to not think that I don't know what I'm doing and this is going to all blow up in my face.
Yes, that's normal, honestly, in new situations. It's normal when we step into new environments to feel, that lack of confidence. And I think your question is, how do you know when it's the lack of confidence versus, what was the other part of it?
How much is, like, how do you separate what is a growing pain of not being good at something yet, but knowing that you're going to get there? That, like, you have the confidence that you're going to get there, but the struggle in the moment feels like a lack of confidence.
Yes, I think the one thing I say in that situation is to be patient with yourself and extend yourself some grace. And sometimes we're so hard on ourselves because we're afraid of failing. We're afraid of people finding us out and thinking that we're not capable, or we've gone from something that we were really good at to now something that we don't feel so good about ourselves in. And oftentimes because we're associating our success or results with something, with our worth. And so maybe taking a step back and saying, okay, my worth hasn't changed. I'm in a new situation, but my worth hasn't changed. And extend yourself some grace to say, you know what, I'm going to learn this. It's going to take some time. It's going to take even just developing some relationships or doing some things that may not be comfortable. And then I'll say in that time frame, committing to learning as much as possible. So extending, reaching out to people that can help you learn what you should learn, right? So I remember vividly in my career when I was moving around a lot. I was moving around to not only just different states, but I was moving around to different states and leading teams in new parts of the business. So each time I moved, I was moving to a new state, a new city, and getting a whole new team. And in many cases, the teams were people that were older than me, people that had been with the company for maybe 15 years. And I was probably like 2 years into the company. And so I just remember being committed to saying, I'm going to pick the brains of the people that have been here and position myself as a partner and kind of role reverse. And it worked because people started to share information. So I had to realize quickly that I can't be so hung up on knowing everything that I can't ask the questions. And so I set up a lot of informational interviews. I started to find who was good at what they did. I started to find out who were the strong people on the team. I started to find out who were the strong peers of mine, who were the ones that were just not people I probably wanted to partner with too closely. I started to find out all of that by just reaching out. And so I would say maybe in that situation right now, Amy, it's just to overreach, extend your reach, set up informational interviews, set up time to come on your 360, surround yourself with people that you can connect with in your 360 if that's possible. Does that help?
It does. In fact, I just took a note. I have a one-on-one. I'm going to follow up with my boss on it this week to ask for those kind of informational things, because I'm from a department that does a little bit things differently than the group that I was recently moved into. So I'm going to go ask, show me how they do it versus how we do it. So thank you.
Yeah. And people will start to, I found that it worked in my benefit, and you'll find it probably does you the same when people in your supporting groups, or either the groups that support you or the groups that you support, when they start to find out about you and they connect with you, sometimes it starts to put you at an advantage early on, because people think, oh, we can go to Emmy and talk to her and ask her this question. You start to develop those relationships and that trust, is particularly when maybe other people in other, on the team haven't done that yet, or weren't as quick to do that, or weren't quick to look to the other teams for advice and information. So you can position yourself really easily as a new person who wants to partner, who's excited, who's interested, and just flip it on in your favor. I find it typically will work.
That's great advice. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm jumping off to go eat dinner. I'm starving, but I want to say thank you, Velera. Thank you for today. This was amazing. Thank you for letting me chat with you. So
good. Thank you, ladies, so much.
Thank you.
I'm going to sign off as well.
Okay. Well, then we'll all head out here, but
I also need dinner.
We got a couple more events. I hope to see a lot of your pretty faces soon.
See you next week.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you.
Ladies. Have a good evening.
Bye,
Thank
everybody. Bye. Thank you. Thanks.